Good morning, everyone, and thank you for participating in today's BKD Technologies webinar, Where is the Intelligence in Business Intelligence, presented by Halo BI. We hope you will find this webinar informative and of value. A link to today's presentation slides can be found in your GoToWebinar questions window. There are a few housekeeping items before we get started. Please shut down any unnecessary programs currently running on your computer at this time. This will help speed up the progression of the slides on your screen. The presentation will last approximately 50 minutes, with a question and answer period immediately following. To ask a question or to provide feedback, click on the Questions tab on the GoToWebinar toolbar and type in your question. We will try to answer as many questions as possible after the presentation, and any unanswered questions will be responded to by email. A recorded copy of today's webinar will be available on bkdtechnologies.com/attend early next week. You will be asked to fill out a short survey as you exit the webinar. Please take a few minutes to complete the survey so we may improve upon future webinars. Today's webinar is eligible for CPE. To receive CPE, please view at least 50 minutes of the presentation and complete the polling questions when they appear on your screen. The questions will be spread throughout the presentation and will be available for only 15 to 20 seconds, so your attention is required. There is no right or wrong answer, and you must complete at least 3 of the 4 polling questions to receive CPE. If you are viewing this webinar in a group, the group attendance form will need to be completed, which is available with the handout materials at bkdtechnologies.com/attend. The person registered for the webinar should act as a group leader to complete the online polls and return the completed group attendance sheet. Individual participants do not need to complete an attendance sheet. All group attendance sheet must be submitted to training@bkd.com within 24 hours of this webinar. If all eligibility requirements are met, each participant will be emailed their CPE certificates within 15 business days of the live webinar. A list of frequently asked questions is available by going to bkd.com/webinars/CPE. Our presenters today are Brandon Kirby and Ray Major from Halo Business Intelligence. Brandon is Vice President of Technology and Business Development for Halo Business Intelligence. He has 17 years of sales and software industry experience, including work in enterprise software, and previously served as Halo BI's Vice President of Sales. He was named to the Microsoft Dynamics Most Influential Top 100 list 3 years in a row. Ray is a seasoned executive with nearly 3 decades of experience managing tech firms from startup to maturity. An economist and researcher by background, Ray understands business analytics from both the user's and the developer's perspective. Prior to taking the reins at Halo BI, Ray was a senior vice president at the Nielsen Company. Prior to that, he headed up B2B software development efforts for Equifax National Decision Systems. And now I would like to turn it over to our presenters to begin.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I am Brandon Kirby, and I'm joined by our CEO, Ray Major. Today, we're going to be walking through a presentation on where is the intelligence in business intelligence. But I'd like to start with a poll question. So if you could go ahead and take a look at your screen. Now, we know that we have several different folks from several different departments that are on today's call. Would you mind kind of sharing what role you're actively with? Are you on the finance team, sales, IT? Are you an executive, or none of the above? We'll give you a moment to go ahead and fill that out. Fantastic. We're getting the results in now. Okay, so you can see kind of a wide range of folks are on today's call, largely on the finance team. That's helpful. Thank you for that. We'll try to tailor the discussion to those different role types throughout the entire webinar. I'd like to go ahead and transition over to Ray Major.
Good morning. This is Ray Major, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about human intelligence and how business intelligence is really facilitated by human intelligence. So business intelligence, if you look at it from a definitional perspective, it's really the ability to organize and collect and maintain data. So it's very much focused on the fundamentals of putting information together in computer systems. Human intelligence, on the other hand, is the property of the mind that allows people to reason and plan and problem solve to think and comprehend ideas. And it's this aspect, the human intelligence aspect, that really needs to be empowered to make business intelligence something that can be used and made actionable within a company. The second part of the definition of business intelligence is that it produces large amounts of information that can help develop new opportunities. And identifying these opportunities, you can start to implement an effective strategy. But if you think about it, developing new opportunities is really the human aspect of it. Humans develop new opportunities. It's not the databases that are actually developing new opportunities. In terms of implementing an effective strategy, again, that's a human decision that's being made. So really, it's the nexus between human intelligence and business intelligence that needs to occur in order for a BI implementation to be successful. So I'd like to take just a moment to talk a little bit about Halo Business Intelligence and what we do. What we do is we empower human intelligence within companies like yours. That is what we do. We really pride ourselves on trying to bring order to what is inherently disordered, which is all the data that you have in all these various databases. And what we want to do is to make sense out of what is inherently nonsense. So we do this primarily by wrapping the Microsoft stack. We aggregate multiple databases and data sources, and then we cleanse the data to make sure that that information is as correct as it can be. And then we present that back to the users within your organization as essentially one version of the truth, and we report that via dashboards, reports, maps, analytics, whatever the visualization is that is necessary in order to make these business decisions. And then we distribute all of that throughout your entire business ecosystem. So people who need your data may not be just people who are within your organization. You may have people who are your vendors or your distributors or your wholesalers or your customers who need information from your data warehouse. And empowering those people is what our systems allow you to do. We have 350 customers worldwide. About 150 of those are in North America. We're headquartered in San Diego, California, and we have global offices throughout the world. And we've won a couple of Gartner Awards.
And I think one thing that's pretty interesting, if you look at some of the customers there on the logo page, is kind of the wide variety of different types of customers that we have. Taylor Farms, that's a Dynamics AX customer. They're about a $2 billion firm, 15 different business units that roll up. They were looking to take advantage of some pre-built analytics specifically for their ERP system, but also take advantage of some of these silos of information that they had throughout the organization, spreadsheets, legacy databases, warehouse management tools, etc. All the way to .orgs like American Heart Association, that's one of our J.D. Edwards client, UGG or Deckers Outdoor Corporation, that's actually an Oracle EBS customer. And if you were to look at this, all of our different customers, the one common thing amongst them is really these are organizations that are looking to take advantage of off-the-shelf, pre-built analytics, but also empower their end users to make better business decisions with trusted data in a very easy-to-use format without having to lean on IT.
So I think what I'd like to talk about now is metrics-driven organizations and those that make decisions based on objective criteria, and how effective BI can really be within a company. And these are some numbers that we've put together. They were from a study by the Hart-Hanks company, Aberdeen Group, and what they looked at was to see how effective BI was within companies. And what they noticed is that those companies that have well-implemented business intelligence systems and those that are actually using them to make business decisions have significantly higher financial returns than those companies that don't. So these are the type of returns that companies who use business intelligence well to drive their business are enjoying. So you're looking at 4 times the industry average in terms of operating cash flow, operating profit, and organic revenue. When you take a look at the sales pipeline, they're nearly triple the industry average. There's about 40% year-over-year increase in the sales pipeline. When you take a look at these companies from the perspective of return on their marketing investment, you see that they have more than double the industry average. And when you take a look at things like customer retention and employee retention, they have some of the highest percentages within the companies that were surveyed. And the reason that this is happening is that business intelligence allows you to use the data to make better business decisions and to drive your business in the direction that you want.
And I think what's interesting here is this is enabling the organizations to become much more of a metrics-driven organization, be proactive versus reactive. And these are color-coded kind of for a reason. If you look at the blue, the first bullet set there about operating cash flow and profit and organic revenue, think about that as where your financial executive dashboards and your reports, your alerting systems, et cetera. And then you have your sales and your pipeline, your marketing is in the green, and then your customer retention and employee. All those are different dashboards that your organization and leaders can actually be managing in a very proactive basis, becoming much more of a metrics-driven organization. So if something starts to go sideways, you can immediately react and take action based on this information.
The thing is that almost every company has this information available somewhere within their data systems. The real issue is how do you expose that in a way where people can make business decisions on it. So who are you really trying to empower with this data? And I want to talk just a minute about what the real BI audience is. And the real BI audience is something that Peter Drucker in the 1960s defined as the knowledge worker. And these are people who are white collar, they use their brains for a living. That's why you pay them on your payroll, because you want them to use their brains to make business decisions for you. We've moved out of the realm of where most of our business is done by laborers, where they'd be very easily scalable to bring in additional low-tech people to do that type of work. But when you look at these knowledge workers, they spend 15 to 30% of their working time actively searching for information within the company. And less than half of the time, that's considered to be a successful search. They are in offices and they are being interrupted due to multitasking and all sorts of other interruptions, and they lose 2.1 hours per day due to that. And the most insidious statistic that I found was that workers react to 40% of their emails within 4 seconds. And if they do decide to go over and answer that email, it takes them 15 minutes to resume their task. So there's lots of interruptions in the workday, and I can just imagine with you too, what you believed that you were going to do this morning when you walked into the office is probably not exactly what you're going to end up doing today because of all of the changes in direction that happen within modern work environment. But what happens here is that these knowledge workers end up working effectively 2.4 hours per day. And it has to do a lot with the fact that we just need to be able to get that information to them effectively. So if you had a business that had 100 employees and you could increase their productivity by just in half an hour by getting the information to them so that they could make business decisions more quickly and move forward, you could save 15,000 hours of productivity per year. That's about 7.5 full-time people, which is a tremendous amount of additional productivity that you could drive through your business. So let's talk a little bit about human intelligence and how it relates to businesses. I would argue that businesses are really simply a collection of decisions. If you take the business that you're in right now and you take all of the people and you replace them with random people off of the street, you would not have the same business, and they would be making different business decisions. And every day that you come into the office, you make hundreds of business decisions that are relevant to your business. So when you wake up in the morning and you start to open emails and you start to decide what you're going to respond to, whether you're going to approve something or you're not going to approve it, what you're going to prioritize, those are all decisions that in aggregate start to affect how your business works. So BI really supports this decision-making process. If you take a look at some of the studies, there's about 500 business decisions that are made per day by employees who are white-collar workers. And if you multiply that out, you're looking at somewhere on the order of 10 million business decisions that are being made per year that drive your business. So the question really is, if I could make more better decisions than bad decisions, how much more effective could my business be? And that's really what we try to do with BI. We try to move the needle on these 10 million business decisions by giving people the right data so they're making more right decisions rather than wrong decisions. How do we drive more value from data? If we take a look at this on an axis of complexity to business value, this is really driving more intelligence from the data, really. What we talk about a little bit is on the low end, we're looking at things that are called descriptive statistics. And at the lowest end, we have something that is called reporting. And this is what you typically get out of your ERP system. So this talks about what happened. And it really is kind of like looking in a rearview mirror where you are using this type of information to put together the financials that you need for your quarterly reports and things like that. And I'll use an example of an ice cream vendor. And let's say this guy is selling ice cream on a corner, just so that we can understand these different levels of analytics that I'm going to go through here. But in terms of reporting, what this ice cream vendor would report is he'd get a report that said that he sold 25 gallons of ice cream last weekend. Okay, so he has information now that allows him to see what happened. This would be questions on inventory. This could be questions on sales, etc. In terms of analysis, which is the next level up, is a little bit more complicated to figure out, but it has a higher business value also. And analytics, again, are descriptive statistics. It can come from your ERP system, and this is when you start posing the questions, why did it happen? So if I take a look at that report, and I see that actually I sold 10 gallons more of ice cream than I usually did, I want to kind of figure out why that happened. And I might come to the conclusion it's because there was a heat wave last weekend, and there was a YMCA camp that dropped off a lot of kids that weekend, and so my sales were up. So I can try to understand why something happened. Analysis. Above analysis, we have something that's called monitoring, and this adds a little more value to the business, and it's a little bit more complex. But monitoring really is talking about what is happening now. And as we try to drive more value from the data, this is the continuum that we try to go up. And monitoring would kind of be like me being able to tell how many ice cream cones I'm going to sell per hour, and I can kind of tell between noon and 2 o'clock I'm selling the most, and between 8 and 9 in the morning I'm not selling very much. So I could make business decisions based upon knowing what is happening now. But all of these are really working on what would be considered historical data, right? We're looking backwards, or things that there are occurrences that have already happened, and we're trying to understand them so that we can be more efficient in future decisions. But above that, we have something that's called regression analysis. And in regression analysis, what we're doing is something that's called forecasting. And in forecasting, we want to understand what might happen. So these are these quantity type questions. So how much inventory do we need to carry? What stock levels do we need to have? And this is where we start to actually use data and add intelligence to it so that we can look forward and drive our business better. So with forecasting, we might do something like look at the weather and know that next weekend it's expected to be really hot again, but there's no camp scheduled for this weekend. So how much more ice cream should I actually send to my vendor? So you can start to ask these questions and make better business decisions going into the future. These are quantity questions. Next, in the value continuum, we have something that's called cluster analysis, and this is where we do something that's called predictive analytics. And within predictive analytics, what we're trying to do is answer some of the behavioral questions of why people do what they do, who your best customers are, where they might live, and what they're most likely to purchase. And so in this particular case, it would be something like taking our data and doing some analysis on ice cream sales, and we find out that it's not really the kids who are our best customers, but it's teenagers, and they tend to purchase double scoops of ice cream, and when they do that, they also purchase waffle cones. Okay, so by doing this cross-sell analysis, what we can start to understand is what the correlation is between one good that we sell and the potential for somebody to buy the next good. And based upon that, we can start to make better business decisions in terms of incentives, for instance, to have people buy that additional next item. Okay? This is predictive analytics. And this, again, sits on the data that you currently have within your data warehouse, but it requires additional types of analytics to be done on top of it. And finally, in the value continuum, we have something that's called simulation modeling or prescriptive analytics. And this is where the market is going in the next few years. And this is where we take big data and all sorts of other information that would be impacting your business, and we start to figure out how the potential outcomes will occur based on the complexity of interactions that occur within your business. So every business is driven by lots of different interactions happening. So in terms of the ice cream vendor, if he knew that milk prices were going up and that would change his cost structure going forward, and he knew that he wouldn't be able to sell as much ice cream if he had to raise the prices, what alternatives would he have? What decisions could he make today knowing that ice cream prices are probably going to go up in the next 90 days? Maybe he could switch to also carrying a line of sorbets or something like that would have a better profit and cost structure for him. So simulation modeling helps us try to understand what is the impact of what might be occurring based upon things that happen now, what's going to happen in the future. So this is how we drive more value out of data. And all of this wrapped together is what we consider to be business intelligence. And empowering humans with this type of information is how they make better business decisions for you. So the technology that we put on top of, or that is now available that we put on top of all of this data, is really only half the problem. It's empowering your people to make those decisions, which is really the other half of the problem.
So a quick poll question to make sure you guys are paying attention here. What systems do you need data out of for reporting? You know, most of the time we ask people, where do you need the data from? And they say, oh, everything's in our ERP system. Everything's in Dynamics or JD Edwards, et cetera. And then we start to probe a little further and say, all right, well, where's your budget or your forecast? Oh, that's actually in Excel, and we try to import it into those other systems only for reporting reasons. Maybe they're a new ERP client, and all of their historical transactions are locked away in the legacy system. And then CRM tools that are out there, a lot of construction-type organizations use Halo for bringing in weather-type information to be able to look at forecasts and how that's going to impact productivity. So take a moment to go ahead and fill out. And this is a multi-select, or actually I think it's set up as a one only. So this was intended to be a multi-select because I'm sure many of you actually need data from multiple and disparate systems. So this poll might not come across accurate. So you can see here ERP, Excel, legacy systems. So this is very consistent with what we see in the market. So this is very helpful. Thank you. Now, here's the typical challenge that most folks face. Is very much like you on the line today, you've got data spread throughout the entire organization. And if the CEO needs to ask 3 basic business 101 questions, how is business doing, how should it be doing, and how will it be doing, you typically have to go to 3 different silos of information. You might need to go to your ERP or your GL for actuals, your budget locked away in Excel, your CRM that's going to actually contain all of your forecast type information. And the challenge that a lot of our end users face is they don't understand why it takes so long for analysts or IT folks to be able to pull this data, and why the data is so inconsistent. While different reports are producing similar type numbers, but they're not down to the penny. Well, this is the challenge that you're facing, is you have to aggregate all this data, clean it, and then be able to present, which is very time-consuming for some of our highest-paid employees.
If you take a look at the human intelligence continuum and how decisions are made, all of this data that Brandon just described is what we're trying to gain a handle on. And really, when you apply that to how humans think, that part of it is really the researching. It's the gathering of the parts. So all of that information we would call data. And you have that, and you have it in various places. But to make sense out of it, we really need to absorb that information and connect those pieces and parts together to create information. And it's the information that allows us to probably start to make better business decisions here. The information then rolls up into knowledge. And what happens here is when you start interacting with the data, you start forming this concept of what is good for business, what's bad for business, things that are right and wrong. So this is where a lot of the KPIs and metrics come out of, is when you start reflecting on, or you start interacting with this data. And this is where knowledge comes in. And finally, we have wisdom. And wisdom comes from reflecting on the data and being able to say, yes, when this particular variable is out of whack, it impacts these variables over here. So this is where we join all that information together, and we really start to be able to empower human intelligence to make sense out of the disparate data sets that are down in the bottom of this continuum. Here we go. Yeah. So let's take a look at what business intelligence platforms typically do. Business intelligence platforms typically take information as data, facts, contents, etc. And what they do is they end up creating maps and reports and spreadsheets and things like that. But this data really has very little meaning. If you take a look at that pie chart that's on the screen, and there's this red chunk of the pie, I mean, is that good or is that bad? It's really the human that makes that decision. If the red is your profit margin, maybe that's a good thing. If the red is the number of returned items you have because you have errors in your process of your building process, that's probably a bad thing. But it's the human interpretation that adds value to the data. The data is really dumb. The people are smart who interpret this information.
So when we've been in front of customers and they ask and they kind of challenge us with where is the intelligence of business intelligence, I understand. Up until now, it's really just glorified reporting. There is no intelligence in BI until now.
So business intelligence really needs to be there to empower the human intelligence. The people within your company who work in the business intelligence arena, the IT people, statisticians, the DBAs, data entry people who are putting in the point of sale data, they're the ones who are creating all of this value, but they're usually not the ones who are interpreting it. They're usually also the ones who are in charge of the BI system. And lots of times it gets relegated to the IT department. But the customer of this information is within the business unit. They're the humans in the business unit. You have people with tacit knowledge. These are your longtime employees and your subject matter experts. And these people need access to that in a very specific way so that they can make better business decisions on how things are going. So these are the people that you go to if you have if you're a manufacturer and you have a part that keeps breaking. These are the people that you go to try to understand what is it about the part that needs to be changed in order for us to make this happen correctly. These are your go-to people, and they need to look at the BI information in a certain way. You also have a lot of people within your organization who have explicit knowledge. These are accountants and line managers, the designers, the product managers. These are the people who take the input from these longtime employees and subject matter experts, and then they figure out how to make that change happen within the process so that you can improve your business. So where your subject matter expert may say, this is what we have to do things differently, then it's the product managers, the design managers, line managers. They're the people who actually implement that to make it happen. And they need to look at different statistics and dashboards that are also sitting on top of that data. And finally, you have your strategists and your CEOs and corporate people who are looking to move the business forward. And they too need access to the data. They need access to understand their profitability and life cycle of product and where things are going. And they're looking at a completely different view of the data. So what business intelligence really needs to do is to empower the human intelligence within your organization.
So most BI tools that are out there today have helped by enabling you to aggregate data from multiple silos of information or disparate systems, right? So that's great. We've overcame that as a particular issue. Central repository, single version of the truth, enabling end users to be able to access it. The challenge that most organizations are is everyone's still in silos. You have your marketing team, your finance team, your sales team. So every day, something that kind of plays out across the country is someone, let's say the CEO, logs onto the BI system and sees a trend of margins, and they're falling. Margins are down 14%. So what does he do? So he calls in his team. He says, hey, guys, and this is exactly how Ray does it for us. He goes, hey, guys, just kind of curious. Margins are dipping here by 14%. Can you help me understand why? Now, I'm sure maybe your CEO might be as nice or nicer or maybe not as nice, but the big challenge that they're facing is now everyone has to find out why this is happening. So this becomes everyone's new number one priority. So the VP of Marketing, VP of Finance, VP of Sales, they all run back to their silos or their offices, and they start talking with their team. The VP of Sales starts pounding the sales guys and saying, hey, guys, help me understand what's going on. The marketing team starts looking at all of their different types of promotions that maybe they ran within a given period of time. The finance team goes, you know what, we changed the way that we had recognized revenue. Maybe that's one of the things that's driving the margins down.
So what happens here is that people start to answer this question, this new number one priority, which essentially is one of those things I was referring to in the beginning, where it changes what you're doing today and gives you a whole new work product that you need to do today. But what ends up happening is this collaboration ends up happening in most companies between 7 and 9 different tools. So these different groups will have either meetings if they're on site, or they might be IMing each other. They could Skype each other. Maybe somebody picks up the phone to call the sales guy to ask what happens, reports, emails, text messages. The thing is that the business problem, which is why our margin's down 14%, is going to be answered by this team, but all of the learning and all of the human intelligence that went into figuring this out is lost right now because it's scattered throughout all these various systems. Collaboration within a BI system is really what helps to break down these silos, because everyone here is working on the same business problem, and they're looking at it from their perspective. Subject matter experts, the executives, et cetera, they're all looking at it. So human intelligence really becomes very valuable when you can collect that and you can save it so that it can become part of your corporate IP. So human intelligence becomes collective intelligence, meaning that everybody's weighing in on it, and we actually come up with the answer to that question. And we take that collective intelligence, we end up making a better business decision when everybody weighs in on it. And what ends up happening is that this starts to empower organic intelligence, which means that the business starts to address problems in and of itself before they actually become problems. This is because this is collaboration, or humans actually working together. So having collaborative tools as part of your BI system is absolutely critical. The intelligence in business intelligence, which is really your largest untapped competitive advantage between you and your competitors, is just that. It's the ability to collaborate and work together to share knowledge through some type of a system, to be able to expose the data so that you can discuss the anomalies within that information, to be able to shorten your decision-making loop by having people weigh in on it all at the same time, and making sure that the right people are involved at the right time to make those business decisions. And this is really how intelligence gets built into business intelligence. So the value that's derived from business intelligence doesn't come from the data itself, but it comes from the human intelligence that we apply to interpret, interact, and learn from the data.
Okay, so how is Halo different? So this gets into a little bit of specific information about Halo overall. So remember this slide. This is ultimately why everyone should be on this call and why they should look and actually implement a BI solution, is so that you too can enjoy some of these different these benefits that these best-in-class organizations have been able to enjoy. So again, going back to this Aberdeen study, they had interviewed 370 executives and tried to understand why and what they're doing differently versus their competition. So I would argue that this is actually, these are organizations that have kind of found out the secret. They have blended the business intelligence with human intelligence to be able to make bottom line impacts. And these organizations, with what they're doing with the data, is differently than what most companies are doing today. So the first thing that they want to do is identify other data systems or data sources. So a lot of folks, ERP is going to be great for 85% of the information that you're looking for, but you need to be able to blend this data with other systems. So this might be, if you're a retail organization, maybe it's demographic data. If you're a construction organization, maybe it's weather data. Manufacturing, pulling sensor data off the plant floor and be able to spot a particular machine that's having some issues and spot that it's probably going to go down in the very near future and you need to be proactive. Take that machine offline and get it fixed before it completely, pulls the plant down. The next thing that they're trying to do is enable self-service delivery of this information to the consumers. Now, mind you, a lot of these knowledge workers that are out there in the organization, they might not be Excel gurus. They might be people that are on your sales team. They need something that's nice, easy to be able to use, drag and drop type of an environment, and really empower them to be able to make smarter decisions with their time and ultimately the company's direction. Top-down KPIs, key performance indicators. So typically you will only have 5 to 10 key performance indicators, and this is really what is driving the organization. So maybe it's sales, maybe it's your cash flow, maybe it's your profitability if you're in the procurement side, maybe it's how your on-time delivery, your fill rates, things of that nature. But enabling the end users to be able to spot those trends, that if a KPI starts to have a downward trend, that they can drill into that information and collaborate with other team members that are outside of the office on, this is our issue, now what are we going to do about it? Now, a lot of folks are very focused on just sales analytics or financials or whatever that might be, very internal or very tactical type of information. Once that you solve that in typically a later phase, we see organizations that want to open up this data to more and more users, opening it up to their business partners. Their business partners might be customers, might be suppliers, and opening this up to really anyone that needs access and can benefit that's on your team. So BI without boundaries. So the Halo solution is one of the only holistic suites that's out there. We have, for the IT folks, this is the piece that you're going to want to pay attention to. On the back end, there's an ETL SSIX accelerator. So really what this is doing is leveraging your investment in the Microsoft BI stack, simplifying it, taking advantage of a lot of the pre-built analytics that we have for over 20 different line of business systems. So that's Microsoft Dynamics GP, AX, Oracle EBS, Salesforce.com, Microsoft CRM. The visualization tool, it's all HTML5. Why I use that term is because you can use this type of visualization tool on any device, anywhere. iPad, iPhone, drop it into SharePoint as a web part. Halo Rings, that's our collaboration tool. And then the last thing is Halo Span. This is where you can actually open up this environment to third parties without the IT nightmare of having to put all their profiles and all the security conditions into Active Directory. So it's going to simplify everyone's life when it comes to maintaining your customers' information or your suppliers' information in these different third parties. So all together, this is one holistic suite that's designed and built to work with one another. So we remember this slide that Ray had kind of discussed on how decisions are ultimately being made. So again, the gathering of parts is our ETL solution, Halo Source. Being able to connect those parts together, visualize it, put it in a nice, easy to use, something that your brain can actually understand, the visualization tool, Halo Prism. Halo Rings, that actually is the formation and allows the collaboration. And then the net is actually going to empower wisdom at the end of the day. So a quick poll question. What percentage of the data in your systems is accurate? So this is data that you're pulling out of your ERP system, out of your forecast tool. Now, before you answer this, think of things like your addresses. Are all of your address information absolutely correct and accurate? Or do you have some of the typical challenges that we see with users inputting United States of America, USA, U.S.A, US? All those things can ultimately result in inaccurate reporting or dirty data. Suppliers or customers named 3 or 4 different ways. So what's your level of trust in the data that you're actually doing reporting off of? So we'll give you an opportunity to go ahead and answer this. And the results are coming in. Oh, that's good. That's good. 90 to 100%, 75 to 90%. Okay, this is very helpful. So to kind of give you a little fact here, a lot of folks, before they have a BI tool or Halo specifically, what they're doing is they're aggregating this data, dumping it to Excel. So lots of white papers have been done. 94% of Excel files have errors. A lot of you that are out there are inheriting these spreadsheets from your predecessors. The massive spreadsheets with 30 or 40 different tabs along the bottom, and everything's kind of connected to one another, only opens up the organization for risk or error. Now, getting back to the Aberdeen report, which this presentation was based off of, best-in-class organizations can trust 93% of the data. Industry average is about 77%, which is actually correlates very well with the poll that we just did, while the laggards, or the people that are still kind of struggling, are about 57% trust factor. Now, getting information out to key users in a timely manner so they can actually make decisions. So how many times does someone come to you and say that they need a report? You kind of chuckle and laugh and say, yeah, you can get that in 3 or 4 weeks. I'm completely backed up. That's what a lot of people are facing. Or if you can turn it around quick enough, the report's not exactly what they had asked for. So let's say the VP of sales comes in, he wants to see a product sales year-over-year report. You create exactly what he or she had asked for. You turn it back and he goes, you know what, I asked for that, but I was really looking for sales by region, by product, by customer, by vendor, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where you get yourself stuck in this reporting ping pong. So the holistic platform, Halo, actually gives you the ability to identify the data, pull data out of anywhere. 98% of all the information that's out there, Halo has the ability to extract this data. So this is your Facebook, Twitter, if you care about that information, your sensor data off the manufacturing plant floor, weather, if you care about that information. All this information can be pulled in. It can be cleansed. We can profile it. We can start to monitor it so that if the data starts to get a little dirty, it will identify that this is an issue and signal the appropriate parties to help clean up this information. Nice, easy ability to be able to visualize it and then be able to push it out to those that are outside your firewall to be able to access secure information in a timely manner. Now, the Halo suite, this is kind of what the data flow looks like. So good, we're extracting the data, we're pulling that into a data repository, again, leveraging your investment in the Microsoft stack, generating cubes. Now, you can have several different ways to be able to structure a cube. Some people prefer more siloed or modular approach, sales, finance, inventory, while others kind of prefer more of a hypercube, if you will, where they want everything in one cube that you can follow the entire quote-to-cash process. So it's very flexible, very agile, and then being able to deploy this in 100% mobile front end. Some of the examples of the dashboards that we're going to look at are kind of a geocode or a mapping of all your customers or suppliers. The system automatically does this for you. It's got great connections and export capabilities to Microsoft Excel. In this example, you can see that it's actually retained the formatting of the report or the executive dashboard that I've created here. A lot of folks in the organization, maybe they're not the best person to actually have access to a BI tool or a dashboard. You don't necessarily want them in there drilling, slicing, and dicing through the data. They're best served up the data. So you kind of want to spoon feed them the information that they need in a timely manner. So Halo does give you the ability to automate reports. So 8 a.m. Monday morning, the flash report sent out to all the appropriate parties. Then you can actually tie alerts to these reports. So based on certain thresholds that you set up, if margins fall, if inventory levels dip, whatever that might be, you can actually set up alerts so the appropriate parties are notified. And not only are they going to be notified via email, they get a nice screenshot of the report and an attachment of the report that they can go ahead and click on for additional due diligence. Structured reporting, as you might expect, and the built-in collaboration. So let's take a moment, and I do want to share with you how we would embed this into third-party systems. This is an important piece for a lot of Dynamics users, a lot of Oracle users that are out there. They want one single point of entry for all their ERP users, and for those folks that are not part of the ERP, maybe you didn't buy a license for them, still allow them to pick it up on their mobile device or iPad or whatever that might be. So this is an example of where we've embedded Halo directly within Dynamics AX. You can see that it blends very well. The AX user can be served up not only the AX information or the ERP specific information, but again, data from anywhere. Any of the different legacy systems, Excel files, demographic information, etc., all served up within their familiar interface. All right, that's a lot of talking. I agree. So enough talking. Let's actually take a look at the demo. Now, before I do so, I need to get you trained, and we only have a few minutes left, so let's make this short and sweet. Our training manual is actually printed on a mouse pad. Now, remember, a lot of organizations are opening up these analytics and reports to third parties, customers, suppliers, partners, etc. So they don't have the ability to bring everyone into a training room and train them on the new BI system. So we print our user manual on a mouse pad. That's what you're taking a look at now. You can slice the information using the hand symbol, drill up, drill down within the hierarchy of data by using the plus and minus, and you can sort on any row by simply clicking on the row that you wish to sort on. So let's go ahead and switch over into the actual environment. Now what you should see here is something that looks like a dashboard. So a little bit of housekeeping and how the Halo system works. So behind the scenes, what's happening is we have the ETL SSI accelerator, essentially the wizard or the engine that's pulling data out of your ERP system, blending that with other data systems. It's cleaning the data. It's getting that single version of the truth. It's organizing it, and now it's pushing and delivering that information out to Halo Prism, which is the view that you're looking at here. Now, we have pre-built solutions for several different line of business systems that we've already discussed. We've pre-built a lot of the analytics for the finance team, your chart of accounts, expense analysis, profit and loss. This is the tool that's going to help you do your financial consolidation, your currency conversion. It's going to help you close the month faster than ever before. AR and AP, tracking slow-paying customers and spotting those trends before they become potential problems. Inventory, regardless of the ERP system, we typically find that inventory analysis is typically a little bit more challenging. You can go to your ERP and run an inventory report, and typically it'll tell you how much you have on the shelves at the time that you ran the report. It doesn't give you good visibility as to what you had last week, last month, last year, or doing some of the complex calculations that typically you need to see. Things like what's your turn, what are your slow-moving products that maybe you need to run a fire sale on and get off the shelf before you end up having to eat those dollars and write those products off. And these are all some of the pre-built analytics that we have. And you can see some of the things around supplier or for retail organizations, point of sale, consulting or production, construction information. Now, you need to contact us for a little bit more detail about some of the analytics that we offer. What I wanted to focus on now was ease of use and how users can get to the information that they need, take that data intelligence and blend that with the human intelligence to make better and smarter decisions. Anything that you see in the Halo suite can be emailed, can be exported to Excel. So we do have a very large population of finance people that are on the call today. I'll go ahead and show this feature. I think it's something that you'll appreciate. What I've done is I've taken this report, I've dumped it to Excel. It's going to extract everything that I have here, open up in Excel, and I think that you can appreciate how it's retained the formatting of the graphs. So all the color, the formatting of the graphs, and it's truly embedded. And what I mean by truly embedded in Excel is I can come in and I can change the formatting, or if I actually want to see the raw data that makes up this report, I can actually bring that over in a separate tab as well. So I can be able to make those changes as needed with just a couple of clicks of a mouse button. Now, if I wish to use Excel as my primary way to connect to the data, I can come in, I can bring in all the information that's out of my Halo cube, and now it puts me in a very familiar zone of where I can look at my sales by customer, by product, by a particular time period, and you can see that it's starting to build this out for me here. And let's show all my revenue here, and it populates this. So one, it can be a static data dump or something that's more dynamic of where this information is going to update, and I can actually drill down and click into the underlying transaction detail. So you can see, very flexible. It's going to be able to cater to the finance team. Plus, it's easy enough to use that if a salesperson comes in and they, let's say a VP of sales logs onto the system, they want to look at all their sales globally or maybe focus on a particular area. I'm going to focus on the U.S. Now, when I slice out the U.S. information, I can see they've sold $9 million versus $7.5 last year. It's 48% of my business. I want to learn more about that. So I can start to drill down through the data. And every time that I'm applying a filter or a slice, you can see that each one of these panels now updates to only show me that specific information. So I want to look at Longstreet sales. Here's a map of all of his customers. I can see the ones in Virginia, McClellan and Sons, that maybe they're not performing as we had hoped. I can put some special tasks to Jay Longstreet to maybe call on them or run a specific promotion for Ashland. Or if I want, I can continue to drill through. So I want to do further due diligence on Jay Longstreet. I can drill all the way into the transactional detail level that makes up his $2 million in sales. So this is a listing of all those different invoices, and for extra points here, I can actually scan that invoice directly into Halo and now be able to show that invoice image in the system. One point of entry, I can drill all the way down, transactional level, bring up the invoice, or maybe you're doing expense analysis and want to bring up an expense report. It's one holistic suite to be able to go to ask and answer all your questions that you might need. Now let's get back to being able to take multiple disparate systems and blend those together in one UI. Now what we're looking at here is actuals versus last year. I can see variances. From an end user perspective, what I want to do is I want to come in and I actually want to bring in my budget information, or maybe take this information and create this as a different type of chart. So what I can do here is I can chart these a different way, the way that I want to see this data. So maybe that's a bar chart, maybe that's some KPI indicators. You can see that it's very easy to be able to navigate, make those changes on the fly. Now, we are running out of time here. A lot of users typically, they can't appreciate how easy the system is until they actually see me build one of these views from the ground up, because you don't know how many folks that I actually had put together this demo environment. So here's a very basic report. This is where we get to some of the ad hoc capabilities. So remember the scenario of where the VP of Sales asked for the product sales report year over year? Well, here's that report. I can drill down. I can drill through to the underlying transaction detail. Now, if that user wants to do further analysis and they want to build their own, they can come into the content screen. I can bring in my sales office. I can bring in a trend chart to see my time period. I can bring in my particular brands or channel of business, or let's do customer type. And I'm just dragging and dropping those and adding those to the screen. And you can see how fast the system actually is to be able to run these reports. Now again, every user is going to like to see the data a little differently. So what I can do is I can come in, I can change this to a trend chart. I can add this as one of my nice graphical KPI indicators. I can make the changes to go ahead and show this maybe as a particular chart, all a couple of clicks away. And then what I can do is I can publish this out to my user base very easily with just a couple of clicks. So now they can get access to this new report that I've created. Looking at the clock here, we only have a few minutes left. I'll show one other area since we focused largely in the sales area. I wanted to show you kind of what some of the finance views look like. So let's take a look at something that's a structured report. So this is where you have kind of your nice bold and summary lines. You can also break this down by a particular cost center, or if you want to change this and be able to bring in a different, instead of a cost center, let's bring in all of my departments for further analysis. I can do that. It's just a couple of clicks away. Or I can structure it in much more of an analytical type of format. So where I'm looking at actuals versus budget that's coming out of Excel, comparing that versus prior periods. And again, bringing in the collaboration or the human intelligence piece, this is actually where you can actually collaborate. Because usually what happens is the finance team pushes this information out to end users and they go, there's no way I'm over budget. No way I've spent more than my original budget amount. So they begin asking questions. Typical ways that they do that is they pick up the phone and they call the finance director, or maybe they email back and forth. Now you can actually explain all this information embedded in line with the data. So in the example of the West overspending by over $1 million, you can snapshot that as a point in time. You can collaborate with those folks like Nate Weaver here, who said, you know what, we opened up the Arizona distribution center earlier than decided. I can ask them to go ahead and pull out that numbers to see how, or pull out that information to see how the numbers would look without it. So again, fully embedded. I can continue to collaborate with Nate or whoever those folks are with just a couple of clicks, and I never have to leave the BI platform to be able to do that. Dane, I'd like to turn it back over to you with any questions that you might have. I will leave everyone with kind of a few last questions, our last poll for today, which is, do you have interest in enhancing your reporting or looking at a BI solution? So yes, no, maybe, not sure. One of the things I'd like to encourage you to do is obviously to contact Halo BI. In doing demonstrations like we did today, it was obviously abbreviated. What we'd like to do is do something that we call our proof of concept, where we actually use your data for the demonstration. That's where the biggest impact is going to be able to be made. That's where you can see how the data quality tools are helping align the data, giving you that better single version of the truth, and actually be able to try before you buy the system. So we can see that 30% do have interest, 41% aren't really sure, or maybe, and 12% just have no interest at all. So we do appreciate that feedback. Our call to action is going to be to contact Halo or BKD. You know, working with us should be very easy as our software is to use, easy to evaluate. Literally, we call the proof of concept the 72-hour challenge. You sign an NDA, you send us your data, 3 days later, we turn it back to you in working order. Easy to buy, it's really priced for any budget. And the reason why is because we have both a cloud-based model or an on-premise model, and it's easy to be able to implement. So you can take baby steps. Maybe the first thing that you want to do is deploy a sales analytic environment, then roll into finance or inventory. It's very easy to be able to kind of transition into a larger scale BI solution. And Dane, we've got 3 minutes.
All right, thank you, Brandon and Ray. Just as a reminder, if anyone would like to submit a question, you can go to the Questions tab in the GoToWebinar toolbar and type your question there and click Send. If we don't get to all the questions, I'll make sure that we have someone respond by email so that those answers are given. One of the questions we have is, does it integrate with SharePoint?
Absolutely. This is actually the tool that's finally going to turn SharePoint into more than a document repository, a place to put the HR forms, if you will. How so many organizations only use it, to put the HR forms or documentation. So what this does is any of the visualizations that you looked at today can be simply dropped in as a web part. Very easy to be able to deploy.
Okay, and a related question, I think, can you pull data from other applications?
Oh, absolutely. I'd like to drive that point home. That's where the biggest value of BI is going to come into. If all your information is only in ERP and that's all you care about, there's probably reporting systems that are cheaper and easier to be able to implement than a BI solution. The real value that you're going to get is when you start blending in CRM, sensor data, all these other data types that are making themselves more available in the marketplace today. So yes.
Wonderful. And as I mentioned, if there are any more questions that come in, we'll make sure that those are answered by email. As a reminder, today's webinar was eligible for CPE. If you viewed this webinar in a group, please make sure the attendance sheet is emailed to training@bkd.com within 24 hours. Additional guidelines were given at the beginning of the webinar and are also available at bkd.com/webinar. CPE certificates will be emailed within 15 business days, and additional questions regarding CPE can be answered if you contact our Learning and Development Department at training@bkd.com. I'd like to thank Brandon and Ray once more for giving the great presentation today. We will have the archive of this webinar available on our website next week. Have a great day.